Hi everyone, and welcome to this evening's cancer conversation. I'm going to be talking about nutrition and really how to navigate the holidays. It's hard to believe that the holidays are upon us. It's like I go out shopping and I see not only things from Halloween coming up, Thanksgiving, but even Christmas trees. So you just all of a sudden your cortisol starts to rise. And so oftentimes, this is a season of joy, but it's also a season of a lot of tension. And so what I want to, share with you is that this is a time for joy. This is a time for not extending yourself because oftentimes we have obligatory things that we need to do in regards to, work parties and or family gatherings. And sometimes you just don't have the energy. And I really want you to honor, especially those of you who are going through any kind of immunity issues. And maybe, your husband's got this business party and that, and sure, he'd like you to go with all of them, but maybe you could just sit down and have a chat and say, which one would be most important for me to go to? And that it's okay to go by yourself, but I choose to kind of be a little bit discriminatory on where I'm going to spend my time. And of course, we want you to say, if it doesn't bring me joy, let's not do it, okay? And so that will be our goal, to staying in authenticity as we, move towards, imagine this, another new year coming up. But I don't want to accelerate us that fast, but at the same time, we want to start projecting our sense of really speaking our truth. And we're going to start with the holidays tonight, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, so just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bypass this because I just introduced myself. And for those of you who don't know me, I am the nutritionist and also the e-box practitioner. I do all of the neural emotional work here with our clients. And so we feel that if you come in here for a sore throat or you come here for an immunity issue, there's always going to be an emotional component. And we go through a lot of different kinds of emotion during the holiday season. And so tonight, hopefully I'm going to be giving you some tips so that you can breeze through it with joy and lots of laughter. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you really busted out in a good laugh? And that's what we want to be able to connect to joy. So I've been with Dr. Keneally for over, I'm going on 24 years now. So I feel like I'm kind of grandfathered into this organization. I tell Dr. Keneally we're getting younger together. But so again, it's been a great platform because Dr. Keneally gives me a lot of liberty in regards of not only just the researching and bringing it to the clinic, but also she trusts in fact that I follow all the principles that she believes in. So having core values is very, very important so that you too also can be going to parties and events that you're going to go and share, friendship and core values so that you really walk away getting something out of, whatever party or event that you go to. So mindful nutrition, people automatically go, oh my God, the holidays, I'm going to gain weight. No, I don't want to start any kind of, nutritional program because I'm just going to gain that weight. And I said, well, why do you think you have to? In all reality, when you look at it, it's usually just one meal that's a holiday meal. We're going to have a holiday breakfast, some of you may, because you may have different households to go to. You might have to go like my daughter. She's got to go have Thanksgiving with me and then go have Thanksgiving in the evening with her in-laws. But usually, those are kind of mostly for the youth where they need to spread their time. But when it's our age, we can have, choice because we deserve to be authentic. And so tonight, I hope that you walk away with understanding that you have choice. And that means of what you're going to be eating. And so just because it's the holiday doesn't mean that I have to be in a deprivation mindset. And so we know that there's going to be lots of treats if you're going to work. People are going to be bringing cookies in and candy's going to be all over the place. But you want to say to yourself, this is America. I can get candy 24/7. I can get any pie I ever want to have. This is not like, anything, out of the ordinary. So I say, if it's not absolutely deliciously special and homemade, then why bother? If it's a Costco cookie or, a cake that's made with all this hydrogenated oil, why bother? I always say eat and then feel and then ask yourself, should I do that again? And so we're going to go ahead and move these slides here so we can get on. So again, for many of you, the holidays, you've gone through so much with your healing journey and you don't have the energy, and maybe you've even lost a loved one. So sometimes when we have joyous times where we want to connect, we want to go inward. And so again, this is a time to recognize that not only we're going to honor ourselves, but if we don't want to be around big crowds, rather than being inward, we say, how can we be of service? Can we go do go and do where we volunteer and we're doing a soup kitchen, or we're passing out the meals for the homeless and stuff like that, because it gets us out of oftentimes our own emotional state, and when we become of service, then it actually brings us joy. So I tell my patients, because some say, well, I really don't even have any family members, and I've lost my husband, I just don't feel like celebrating. I say, you know what, that's completely valid. I understand that, because grief, it goes up and down like the waves. 1 minute you're okay and the next minute you're not. But again, remember, joy and happiness are not an outside job, but they're an inside job. And so again, if we're looking for, the perfect moment, or when we, acquire this, or when we achieve this for us to be happy, or to have joy, well, then we're really missing the boat. And so again, there's so many things that we can that can bring us some sense of joy. Even just looking at your grandchildren, picking them up. I call it a liquid IV, right? Because you get such an oxytocin hit, and that to me is so precious. And any of you have been down the road of the healing journey, what is important to you. Truly what really matters is connection, family, and love. And so honestly, that's what the holidays are for me. It's not about going into debt and, making sure you got the latest, iPhone for your kids and this and that. Don't do that, right? Because it's not all about competing or, giving, more than what you have. It's about coming from a place of humility and love and sharing and giving, but it doesn't need to, I say, put us in debt. So again, if you're one of these people, find yourself alone, you've got your church, you've got places that you can reach out to, and I really hope that you do that. Okay, let's see if I didn't miss anything on this. Okay, yes. A lot of my patients say, well, God, I feel guilty. Not going to this or that. And then I know when I get there, they're going to have all these foods. And I already know myself. It's going to be really hard for me not to have those things. And I say, okay, well, there's so many little things that we can do to, I call it safety factors. Like for me, if I'm going to go to a party, and I know, all right, I'm definitely going to be eating way more calories than I would. And I may even indulge in some things that I might look at as once in a while kind of things. Well, what do I do that day? I'm already preparing. I'll do my intermittent fasting in the morning, usually with a fat drink like a bulletproof coffee or a matcha tea with some good fat. Gives me some calories, holds me over, and then I'll have a pretty hearty lunch, somewhere around I'll have a protein shake, but I'll pack it, I'll put like fiber and chia seeds, so it's kind of more, it's a little thicker, a little bit more filling, and then I have that. So really, what have I eaten today except for maybe like 200 calories at the most? So again, we're not about counting calories, but at the bottom line is, if I'm going to prepare for a party, then I can say, okay, I now am ready to have this beautiful meal, but without any shame or guilt. And then I can make really healthy choices. I hope all of you have recognized that having reverence for what we put in our mouth and on our skin, that we always say we're four aspects of self, right? We're biological, what we eat, we are psychological, how we think through the holidays, we are social, we need to connect, and we are spiritual. I mean, this is all, this is a religious holiday, and even whether it's Hanukkah or so forth, this is the time where we're really kind of remembering our spiritual roots. And so again, really, have discernment. What would really bring me the most joy? And if you've got 6 or 7 parties to go to, maybe choose 2 that you have the energy to do that, but you don't need to feel guilty. You need to honor yourself during those times. Now, if you happen to go to a party and maybe indulge in something because your eyes just kind of like threw you into this dopamine desire, so what? Okay, one little, I would say, thing that's not quite on your list, that's not going to make or break you. Even when my patients were like, oh gosh, I have to take so many supplements, I say, sometimes just give yourself a free day. One day is not going to make or break you. Take your medication, that's important. But again, you can, so if you go to a party and you end up indulging in something or eating too much food, we don't have to tell you. You're going to know what, the effects of it, because you might get bloated, gas, heartburn. You may not sleep very well because you ate too late at night. So again, pay attention to those signals, and what it will allow you to do is make course corrections. Say, okay, well, I definitely, I didn't eat before I went, and I was really hungry when I got there. I couldn't help myself, my eyes got a lot bigger, and I kind of just kept picking throughout the night. And by the time I realized it was 9:30 and I was still chewing, and I was going to go to bed at 10:30. Well, guess what? You're not going to have good digestion. As soon as your sun, now we're getting, shorter days. Well, as soon as the sun goes down, you start to produce melatonin, and that is so that you can start preparing yourself for sleep. But if I'm in digestive fire because I'm snacking all the way, an hour before I go to sleep, then you're not going to get a good night's sleep, because digestion takes the most amount of energy of any bodily function. And so I hope all of you know that you need to have at least 3 hours before you go to sleep where you have no food, so that you can actually access fat for fuel and also stored sugars that are in your muscle. But if you eat a protein or a carb snack, you can forget that, and you will end up using your muscle to repair your body and to detox. So we don't want you to do that. So be mindful about that, okay? So again, if you eat a little something that you shouldn't, give yourself a cup of grace. All right, and just say, this is not every day, but if it's homemade and delicious and somebody that you love made it, they're going to infuse it with so much love that that's okay, But again, it doesn't need to be every day. Remember, there's Thanksgiving meal and Christmas Eve and New Year's, so they're kind of one-offs. But it's really easy to just get into, we're in the holidays, I'll, think about, being healthy at the first of the year. And why do we do that? Because this is a lifestyle. And when we have reverence for our body, then we say, okay, this isn't a treat. This is just getting derailed because maybe I'm using food as my drug of choice to try to, soothe myself through this holiday when I'm having a lot of stress. So again, it's really important to kind of really pay attention to, am I regulated? And I always find myself that when I'm not regulated, and what does that mean? That means when I'm feeling, irritated, or I'm being a little testy, or I'm short-tempered, or I'm worried, or I get a little angry, then I know that my nervous system is not regulated. And then what happens is I start to attract the same frequency of things of dysregulation. And so when I start to notice, oh my gosh, I just almost, hit a car, or I almost did this, and I'm saying, Liliana, what's going on? Why are you drawing these incidents? And so I say, when I look back, I say, wow, I've been under so much stress. I've been, running around trying to get everything ready for this event, and, doing the Christmas shopping and being multitasked, and I have forgot self-care. So that's when I step back and I say, okay, there's my magnesium bath. Okay, there's my sauna, I'm grounding, I'm walking, I am, socializing, I'm singing, I'm dancing. There's so many things that can bring us back into regulation. So if you find yourself with any of those, emotions that are really not healthy, in fact, are a negative narrative, then you say, okay, where have I not observed self-care? And this is where it's important to not look at this as something that I do at the end of the day, but something that I weave throughout my day. Okay, so just remember, there's no one size fits all. And when people come for me to nutrition, they're always kind of shocked, because I really want to meet them where they're capable of sustaining a lifestyle. So today I had a woman say, oh my God, I love you. I want to stay in your room all day long, because, she was so afraid that I was going to tell her, you can't eat this, you can't have that, you can't do this. And I say, you know what? We don't need to give up joy. We don't need to give up flavor, because food is very celebratory. And in the holidays, it's all about food and celebration. But what I say is, let's choose what likes us. And again, you are your own personal experiment. If I eat something and I get gas or bloated or diarrhea, then I'd say, oop, my body actually didn't like that. And so again, when we have our elimination, we can kind of just say, is my body digesting or is it not digesting? And so those are all cues that somebody else doesn't have to tell you, but you can start to notice in regards to what is needed. And so again, if you're blood type O, then, you are more liberal at eating more animal products. If you're blood type A, there's certain things that, we'd say, red meat's not so terrific, but if you do eat it, maybe have some hydrochloric acid. So you want to say, who am I and what are my particular needs? So when you meet with me as a nutritionist, I go over that really specifically so that you really recognize this is a program that's suitable for you, and if we get the results we're looking for, then this is great. All right, but if we're not getting the results, then I'm going to change it around. There's nothing that's absolutely going to stay stagnant in regards of, blocked you into it. We're always going to be looking at where we can adjust, where we can make changes, because oftentimes in this protocol of healing, we're a little bit more rigid. And again, who wants to be rigid through the holidays? Nobody. But again, if I pretty much eat one meal and a shake, and then I go out and have a beautiful meal, I don't feel guilty. I feel terrific. But then again, I just don't sit around. I dance, I talk, I have fun. I want to get into the whole vibration of what the holidays are all about. And so again, remember, holidays are about connecting. And so socializing, having fun. And so for me, a party has to do with great music, great food, great company, and for sure, movement and dancing. Okay. So again, map out your calendar. Just kind of look and say, okay, I don't want to be too scheduled in things. I want to have choice. And again, be spontaneous. If you, thought, okay, well, I only have the energy to do these 2 things, or I didn't have the right dress to go to this. And so then you say, you know what? Oh my gosh, I found the perfect dress. Now I'm motivated to go, or I have a little bit more energy than I thought I would. So being spontaneous is great. You're not locking yourself in. But if I have a calendar, and somebody says, would you like to come here, an invitation there, I can look at my calendar and I cannot double book. And I can also make choice. Well, let me get back to you on that. So again, it's not that we leave all of our options open till the last minute, because that's not nice either for people who are having parties, but really be selective. And so again, I'm always kind of marking things in because I'll forget. I'm very project oriented. So again, we talked just about if you have 1 or 2 days where you're just kind of not eating quite the right foods. But again, when I go and I'm kind of out of my schedule, it's not that I'm eating, let's just say gluten or, processed food. No way, that's not even on my Richter scale. But let's just say, there's dessert, which I usually don't ever have dessert after a meal. Just for me, it's my friendly bacteria goes, yeah, doesn't like it, right? But when I do, and I say, oh my God, homemade chocolate mousse, right? And I'll eat it. Now that's not on my schedule, but I will guarantee you, I will have a physical effect. I might get floaty or I might get gas, but guess what? It might be worth it. So if I'm going to have it, I say I'm going to bless this food and I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm not going to think a single thing about it, because you know what? If you feel guilt and shame, it wants punishment, and that's going to be weight gained, and or you don't feel so terrific. So we'll give ourselves a cup of grace when that happens. Okay. So again, I don't ever get to a party right on time unless it is a sit down dinner, and then I will be there 15 minutes before, ask the hostess if I can help you. But I'm always also, kind of asking the hostess, well, what are you going to serve, right? And if it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to say, oh, you should serve this or you should serve that, right? So 99% I'm the person who hosts, because I like to kind of know, what I'm going to have available to me and what I can share with others. But I always ask the hostess, what are you making, right? And then so if I kind of realize, oh my God, the only thing I'm going to be eating at this party is going to be the salad and the vegetables. So I make sure that I have a protein shake before I go. And if I have 21 to 28 grams of protein, add a little fat to it, boom, my whole carburetor, my metabolism is like anchored in, I'm not hungry. But I'll guarantee you, if you go to a party and you are hungry, it's like going to Costco when you're hungry, you're going to knit and pick, and before you know it, you're going to not feel so terrific. And so I 99% will only have a protein shake, as I said a little bit before I go to a party or out to dinner, because then I can really enjoy it, saying, great, no problem. Okay. So again, when I do call the hostess and I've been invited, not only do I ask, what they're having, but I always, because that's the way my mother taught us, you don't ever go to a party empty-handed. I had 10 brothers and sisters. My mom came with half the meal, right? Because she's not going to come over with 10, 11 children and expect that we should host, that someone else should host. So I was always taught, always bring something, and bring something because you're a good cook. I love cooking. Maybe some of you out there go, oh, cooking is the worst, right? Then would bring something that you can eat, right? Maybe you can have beautiful vegetables that you kind of seam with a little bit of a sauce. I have a great cookbook, and so there's so many little things that you can have there that are easy to do, instead of going out and buying them at Costco and having kind of dead vegetables and processed food. To me, I would never do that, just because of the fact that I really value what I put in my body. So for me, when I go to a party, I always bring a salad with protein in it. So my favorite thing is just like a Caesar salad, because that's super simple, with some fennel, Parmesan cheese, and then I'll make like chicken cutlets and then chop them in there. So now I got everything. I've got my protein, I've got really low carbohydrates, so it still affords me the ability to be able to have a little extra carbs, maybe in that homemade pumpkin pie or in a little bit of this. So, for me, I would say 99% of the time I bring something that has protein in it, and that way I know that I have a very satisfying meal. And of course, I would not want to be rude, so of course I'm going to pick here and there, but my plate will be full with that nice salad and vegetables, so you should not have to go hungry. The other thing that I do, because so often, socialization is drinking alcohol and partying and stuff, and for me, I'm going to be 67 this week. I'm like, you know what? When I drink, I don't feel good, all right? And so again, we come from a tequila family. Our family produces tequila, so it's not really special to me. But at the same time, if I want one, I do. I just don't feel the need to do it. So what do? 9 times out of 10, I will immediately go from some sparkling water. I'll put some lemon in it. Nobody knows if it's not a vodka or something like that. So nobody's like, oh, have a drink. Oh, you're not drinking tonight? Oh, come on, Liliana, have a drink. For God's sakes, we're celebrating, right? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, they're trying to pressure me socially, because they feel that, I am, denying myself. And I'm like, I'm denying myself not a good night's sleep if I drink, so I don't feel that I'm, suffering at all. But again, that's what I do. And a lot of times what I do is I make a little elixir, and I'll do same that I have in the cookbook is I'll do ginger and some ginger juice that I just make in the blender, and with some sparkling water and some stevia, and I've got a beautiful, put a little lemon juice in there, and I've got a beautiful drink that's festive. When I have parties at my house, I always serve a tea, so that might be a hibiscus tea. I try to turn it into a mock sangria. I'll have this beautiful hibiscus tea with some stevia, and I'll chop up a little bit of lemon and orange just for the look. But I will guarantee you 99% that container is always completely empty at the end of the night, because it's just like after 1 or 2 drinks, I say, really, what does it do for you? And so most of you, that are listening tonight are really, mindful about how you are treating your bodies. So again, if you want to have a vodka or you want to have a tequila that doesn't have any sugar in it. So for me, if I'm going to do that, I do it neat. So what does that mean? That means I might have a really good tequila, but with some ice in it, a little bit of lemon. I kind of let that ice water it down. But to me, I can have 1 drink and nurse it the whole night. So kind of think every drink, 2 glasses of water, okay? And so I just say, okay, bottom line is this is a social time. If like a lot of patients say, oh my God, I just wanted, a vodka, I want a glass of wine, and I say, well, then have it. It's going to do you a lot more damage emotionally, sending you acidic chemicals within your body, if I'm denying and wanting. So bless it, drink it. But again, if you haven't been drinking in a while, I will guarantee you 1 drink, you'll be like, woo, okay, I feel it, right? So since I don't drink very often, I have 1 tequila on the rocks, and I feel fantastic. But it's not that I need to do it to socialize or to be friendly or to, de-stress myself. And a lot of people use alcohol as a drug of choice, but for me, it's just, okay, it's festive, enjoy, but do it with things that are not going to add. Like I would not have a margarita with a bunch of, syrup in there and things of that nature. So it's not that you can't have, you just want to make really good choices. So I love doing a sparkling, ginger tea, a ginger kind of lemonade, or some hibiscus or mint tea. These are the things that I always have at my party. And like I said, everybody just slurps it right up. And guess what? If they want to add a little bit of vodka to that, hibiscus tea, fantastic, it tastes delicious. So that's a winner. So those are things that you might want to add to your festivities. And then again, we always want allies, right? And so if you've kind of committed yourself to a specific regime of eating, and you don't want anybody to tell you what to do, or you don't want your husband to say, hey, I thought you were on a diet, or why are you eating that? Or don't you know that has 45 carbohydrates in it? You don't really want to hear that. But at the same time, if you have a companion that's, in alignment with what you're doing, they can just give you a little gentle nudge, like, oh, let's, instead of going to the appetizer table, let's just bypass that and go to the vegetables and protein and salad table. And so again, we want to be able to be supported. So if you need, somebody that kind of helps you, you can say, hey, let's focus on, supporting each other. So I never look at it like, I don't want somebody telling me what to do, but if I receive their support, and so I sometimes say, okay, well, make sure. And sometimes what I do too, just to ensure, is I don't wear anything that's loose fitting, because if I've got something tight and it's very fitting, if I eat too much, I'm uncomfortable. So I say, don't wear span, don't wear things that have an elastic waistband on it, because before you know it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm only know that I'm extremely full because maybe I burped and there came up my food, right? But so for me, it's okay, I've got this kind of tight little outfit on, and when I'm starting to feel a little full, well, guess what, everything else feels like I'm filling up the dress a little bit too. So that's kind of something that I like to do. Another thing I love to do is, like, after I eat, and I do this at home every single night, I have something that is going to make me not want to eat some more. So I might immediately go brush my teeth, right? It's like, who wants to eat after you brush your teeth, right? Or if I'm at a party, I will put a mint in my mouth, or I will spray a little bit of mint spray in my mouth. And so that immediately cuts, the urge in the brain. You need a little treat. Look at all the food, because you'll have the sensation of, I'm done, because I just don't have that kind of taste in my mouth of wanting to have a little bit more. It's kind of like a drug. And so again, when it comes to desserts, I'm going to make a keto pumpkin pie, and it's going to be about 8 to 10 grams per slice. I'm going to make coconut whipped cream on top. I'm not going to not have, but I'm going to make whatever I know that I could eat and not have a sense of like I've taken myself over the edge. So, but if you're someplace and they've got this fabulous chocolate mousse or something extraordinary, then I say there's what we call a 3 polite bite rule. Okay, it's like, oftentimes when we go to restaurants and we say, okay, well, does anybody want dessert? I don't know, do you want dessert? Okay, how about we order just one for everybody? And there might be 6 people there, and we've got this beautiful chocolate mousse, and we each get a spoon. And in all reality, 1 to 2, maximum 3 bites. If you get your own serving, to say, I have a 3-bite rule. I mean, I'm not talking 3 bites for half of these big old bites like it's a shovel, but 3 polite bites. And then if you're sharing with friends and you all have a spoon, 99%, people aren't double dipping, because, we're all scared of viruses and stuff. So you take some, maybe put a little bit on your plate, or, and so I said, don't not have it, but at the end, just be very mindful of how much I could have it. Like, I'm always kind of like looking at everything and assessing, oh, wow, they've got, real mashed potatoes, and then they've got this beautiful pie, and they've got this. Where am I going to put those extra carbohydrates? Am I going to have, mashed potatoes that I could have any time of the day, any time of the year? Or am I going to have that homemade special recipe? And so my plate will be, the turkey, it will be the salad, it will be the vegetables, and a little piece of that pumpkin pie. So I'm kind of choosing where I would like to put those extra carbohydrates. Okay, so we talked about the 3-bite rule. So we're just going to go ahead and go over that. And then remember, always ask, what could I bring? And then think in your mind what you're already thinking about bringing. Well, how about if I bring this? Oh, that would be great. Okay. So just always think to yourself that protein and fat are going to stabilize the brain. So if I'm going to go for a buffet of type thing, I make sure I've got my protein, okay, and I've got my salad that's got a good salad dressing on it. And then anything that's starchy of nature, let's just say it's potatoes, or it's going to be, yams or butternut squash or rice, something of that nature. Then again, I say, okay, this is going to be the highest sugar on my plate. So I kind of, again, do a three heaping spoonfuls, but I never ever do more than a half a cup of any of those high carbohydrates on my plate. And that's kind of like, for me, that would be, where I would live in maintenance phase. I don't have an immunity issue. I'm 67, so I want to stay looking 57. So I do it for anti-aging purposes and for disease prevention. So again, I can take it to my max. I just don't take it over, because I'll get a sugar hangover like everybody else. I will gain weight like everybody else. Okay, it's no secret. But the bottom line is if I stay 98% accurate to my lifestyle because I want to, because it brings me joy and I have such vitality, then I don't care. I don't feel like I'm missing out at all, because I have what's called swap out. Okay, if I want bread, I make a keto bread. If I want a dessert, I do a keto dessert, which just means no sugar and no gluten in these foods. And so keto doesn't necessarily mean no dairy, if you can handle dairy as well. So again, there's lots of options that we can do for wonderful, wonderful desserts. But protein is essential. Protein makes me, in my brain, immediately go, 1/3 of the gas tank is full, fats. 1/3 of the gas, 2/3 of the gas tank are full, and all the other is filler food. So look at it like that. Okay, and oftentimes, oh my gosh, people bring food over, things that you wouldn't eat, and so again, I always say, let's send it out with the guest. So I'm always I have these kind of, takeout things that, you can, give to people, because I'm not going to take my Tupperware because, they just fly out of your home. But I've got these ones that are disposable, because I know the holidays, first of all, I'm not going to be able to eat a lot of what sometimes people bring, and I'm not going to be rude and say, oh, don't bring that. They'll thank you so much, right? But that's an addition. So whether they're the desserts or things like that, I send them out with my guests. And that way I'm not tempted. I will guarantee you, if it's in your house, it's going to have a voice and you're going to end up eating it. So for me, a lot of times I can freeze things if it's good protein, and I'm not going to be able to eat all that turkey. Why throw it away? I'm going to make a soup out of it. I'm going to freeze some of it. I can take it out for, different occasions, lunch for my next day. So again, when it's protein, I usually will freeze it. If it is carbohydrates, that 99% I'm not going to eat that bread, or I'm not going to eat those crackers, or I'm not going to have that dessert, whoop, out it goes with the guests, and they seem to really enjoy it. So that's what I do, so that I don't have the temptation lurking around the corner. So one of the things that I know for sure is that that when we move after we eat, like you get up and you go and you do the dishes and you clean the kitchen, that aids in digestion. The Japanese people say that if you walk 100 steps after every meal, you're going to live to be 100 years old. So now I've kind of made it a little bit of a habit that when I eat a meal, dinner especially, I'm going to walk around my neighborhood. And it's beautiful because people have their, right now their holiday, things up for, Thanksgiving already, or for Halloween, and it's cool. So it's an opportunity to engage with my neighbors, but at the same time, moving. And so exercise is something that is essential. It's like brushing your teeth, but people go, oh, exercise, right? And I say, well, if you need to find something that you like. Because if you try to do something that I tell you and you have no interest in it at all, you might do it for a few times, but then you won't. So it's really important for you to say, exercise is not an option. Okay, it's not like something I do when I have, get myself on vacation. So again, it doesn't take hours. I just say even 15 minutes. Go out your house and walk up a street and walk down. Who cares? You got a little bit of, cardio there. So again, it doesn't need to be hours and hours, but again, you want to just say, what am I doing for movement? So for me, it's like essential. I've been an athlete most of my life, so I love the endorphins. I love the way it makes me feel. But sometimes when I'm in bed and it's so cold and it's cozy, I get this voice, come on, Liliana, get up. And I'm like, oh, it feels so good. And I'm like a coach in my head, now get up, right? And I'm like, okay, and I go and work out first thing in the morning on an empty stomach so that I can use all of the carbohydrates in my muscles, the glucose, and start to access fat. And after I finish exercising, I always make it a point to validate myself. And I say, good job. I'm proud of you. So I say, just like you would validate a child, good job. I'm proud of you, blah, blah, blah. You need to do that for yourself. So often we don't have people around us that even say, thank you, great job, it was wonderful. So you become your own personal mentor, coach, spiritual advisor, and best mother or father to yourself by validating yourself and just noticing the wonderful things you do instead of noticing only the things that maybe, you wish you hadn't done, or we point out the things that we didn't do well. But if we point out the things that we did do well, then we know we're in alignment. And when we are drinking our blessings throughout the day, we have a greater bandwidth to deal with, sometimes when things don't go our way, or sometimes when we go down the rabbit hole. And so we give ourselves, I say, okay, if you give yourself this grace, and you're drinking your blessings throughout the day, not only are you in gratitude of being in alignment, but again, you have a better bandwidth to handle the stress of the holidays. So I try not to skip exercise, at least every other day, if not daily. Sleep is essential. Sleep is so essential, and I know a lot of you, including myself, after you go through menopause, sometimes it's hard to get a good night's sleep, right? Because especially, in the hour of detoxification between 2 and 4 a.m., when the liver is being activated and we don't have enough hormones, boop, we can just wake up. And so I really am very much a believer in sleep hygiene. And so again, it's like you start to, say, okay, by 8:30, I'm starting to kind of, what is the stimulation? Is this like a movie that I'm watching that's overstimulating? So I try not to do that. So I say, okay, I start to go up the stairs to my room somewhere around 9 o'clock. Some of you who wake up super early, great, go to bed at 8:30. I would love to be able to go to bed at 8:30, but, I used to be, going to bed late until I really recognized how important and how detrimental it wasn't getting those 7 hours of sleep. If you can get 8 hours, that would be ideal, 9 hours. But like for me, I'm lucky if I get 6, I feel like $1 million. But when I get 4 hours, I'm like, ugh, right? And you're gonna eat more sugar because your body's gonna look for energy. So really getting a good night's sleep is one of the hacks I say for the holidays, because you're gonna have more upper energy. You're not gonna be craving carbohydrates so much, because when I'm waking up a lot, I'm irritated and cortisol will go up and down, and I'll be hungry first thing in the morning. So sleep is absolutely essential. So I have a hygiene, so what is it that you do? Do you do a hot bath 2 hours before? Do you meditate? Do you do some stretching? What is it that you do? So again, I think that is absolutely essential. And of course, sometimes you need your little aids, whether it's 5-HTP, melatonin, a little bit of GABA spray, a little theanine. I mean, I'm like I'm like an alchemist, because I have figured out exactly what it is that I need to support sleep, because I've had periods of my life where honestly it was so terrible that I wouldn't even close my eyes for an entire night and for days on end, and I ran off of cortisol, and I realized my natural killer cells went plummeting like this, and I said, oh my gosh, this is how people get sick, right? And this lack of sleep is actually a real issue in regards to recovering and staying healthy and staying young. So I urge you guys all to adopt a 10 p.m. lights out, okay? And if you can do it earlier, great. And 3 hours before you go to sleep, no food. And if you want something, you can have a little bit of fat, like a handful of nuts or a cup of tea with some organic whipping cream in there. Fat doesn't stimulate insulin. And so if I want a little something, that's what I do. I don't open up the refrigerator and go, what can I have? Because there's nothing in there. I say, okay, go to your nut drawer. You can have nuts. Okay, so again, dehydration. A lot of people are eating because they are dehydrated. And honestly, even just 2% dehydration will impair your ability to lose weight. It will impair your ability to have healthy cell function, because honestly, we have more lymph fluid than we do blood. And so I think we excrete something like 3 quarts of water a day. So we rely on the watery vegetables we have, on the waters that we drink. So again, just always say 1 cup of coffee, 2 cups of water, 2 glasses of water, 1 glass of wine, 2 glasses of water. So we want to dilute the pollute often. Now, I'm not against coffee, but again, if you have adrenal issues, I don't recommend it. But your 1 cup of coffee, and then maybe switch over to something with some antioxidants like matcha would probably be a good idea if you need something a little bit upper. But if I'm actually needing coffee to have energy, then I better start looking at my adrenals and my thyroid, because in all reality, that wasn't our staple. We should have really good healthy energy, and some of us have challenges with that, so we need a little bit of an aid. But I say, let's get down to the roots of it and not try to band-aid it. But I'm okay with coffee, but I prefer matcha and other teas as well. I like adding cream, because cream is a liquid fat, and so again, it doesn't have any carbohydrates, and it has no protein, but it does have calories, and those calories make my brain go, oh, I'm happy, a little bit of dopamine from that dairy, mama, kind of like that luxury mindset, but it doesn't have the casein in it. So for people who are even casein sensitive, you can get away with organic whipping cream, the liquid, because all it is a liquid butter. There's no protein and no carbs in it. So I love using that. I make sauces with it, desserts with it, and it's very, very satisfying. And so again, make sure that you're drinking at least half of your body weight in good quality water. And of course, I'm sure all of you don't dare to think to drink tap water. But at the same time, I don't want you drinking plastic bottled water either, because all of the xenoestrogens and phthalates in that as well. And so again, I have a water filtration, an eco water filtration that adds a hydrogen molecule on it. So actually it's considered a wetter water. So again, water is essential. And so drinking half of your body weight is probably a great start. And a lot of you are taking millions of vitamins. So you're like, I'm getting my water in there. And so it's important. But then again, if you have issues with waking up and urinating a lot, then stop drinking water somewhere around 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, okay? And then, ice chips and things like that, because we don't want to overstimulate your kidneys and you end up having not a very relaxing sleep, a disturbed sleep. So just really remember, everything counts. The way I think through the holidays, whether I'm able to access joy and happiness from the inside out, the things that I put on my mouth, and even, the amount of screens and computers and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, we're scrolling through, on our phone and looking at everybody's things that they're doing over the holidays. Well, all of a sudden, you start to say, oh my God, I've got too much EMF exposure. So you want to just say everything matters. How I think, how I eat, how I love, how I socialize, and how I stay connected to source energy. And so again, our intention is to recognize that we are a whole human being and that there's all aspects of that need to be watered on a daily basis. So, and just remember, you're only as good as your last meal, because all you are is a chemistry equation. So if I've kind of blown it at one meal, it doesn't mean I need to blow it for the whole day. I just, boom, I have a shake and I fix it into the next meal, so that my protein's always higher than my carbohydrate count, and maybe my fat can be a little bit higher than even my protein, because fats has twice as many calories as protein and carbohydrates. Okay, so how are we doing on time? I think we're doing really good. And so I'm going to open it up for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And again, you can ask me, to the best of my ability, any questions that you have about nutrition, exercise, stress management, detoxification. I'm happy to answer those questions. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Okay, back online. All right, so it says right here, what do you think about distilled water and adding minerals? Well, of course, distilled water, mostly we use that when we're in a detoxification process. And so a lot of times we're using it for that reason, because it doesn't have minerals in it. So I would say if I'm using distilled water and adding minerals, I would say just better to have some just good water. Maybe even you can do some alkaline. I don't think every single glass of water needs to be alkaline. That's not what God made, out of the river. He made a 7.4 in terms of the alkalinity. And so I would say, unless I'm doing something specific for detoxification, I probably would not use distilled water. Doesn't Dr. Keneally feel different about nuts and seeds? Okay, so now when it comes to seed oils, absolutely yes, okay? Now again, anything that God made, if I pick it and I grew it, it's gonna be somebody's medicine. Now, of course, we don't agree with peanuts because it's really considered a bean and it has a lot of anaphylaxins, which is mold, so peanut is out. I don't recommend cashews either because they have the highest sugar of all the nuts. So I say, now if you've got candida issues and things that have grooves in them like walnuts and pecans, that's where the fungus stays in there. So a lot of times I'll tell my patients is just sprout maybe a half a cup of nuts by putting them in water, putting them in the refrigerator overnight. They're still going to be crunchy and crispy. And then that way you'll see kind of like a little bit of like, it looks almost kind of like dust on there, and that's just the mold that can come off. But I would say that I love nuts. I don't have an issue with it. Now, it's not that I'm going to eat a whole bag of nuts because that's just too calorically dense, but I would say that if they are organic and you don't have issues with oxalates, because oftentimes they've got a lot of oxalates in it, or if you don't have diverticulitis or issues of the gut, then they should be perfectly fine. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have picked up my book, but this is a great book, and I made it specifically for the healing patients because that we have a lot of beautiful desserts in here, and so I don't want, like I said, I don't want anybody to have a mindset of deprivation because I feel that's more stressful than actually eating it. So I do have a whole section of, chocolate mousses and things like, pies and all kinds of fun stuff. And so this is, a cookbook that you can get off Amazon or you can get it from our store here at the Center for New Medicine. But it's great. So there's keto breads in here, there's cinnamon bread, there's chocolate pudding with avocado and coconut milk. So everything in here, if you're on a healing protocol, either for anti-aging and or cancer prevention, treatment, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, that is the book for you. And I talk to my patients all the time and they, oh my gosh, it's my Bible. I take it everywhere I go. I love it. And so, well, how are the recipes? They were great because they're just loaded with a lot of medicinal herbs in there as well. And so again, our goal is to look at it as a medicine, right? Do no harm. Okay, it says, I figured Dr. Kinley was following Ray Peat's eating style, but I think you suggest a more low carb style and also higher in fat. Totally curious about the difference, and I think you are both awesome. Okay, well now just remember there's no one size fits all. I mean, we get patients that come from Gershton, we get patients that are raw, we get patients that are Chris Beats cancer. And so again, what we want to do is just say, what is your intuitive nature and what feels right to you? When I was a vegetarian for religious purposes, right? I was studying a lot of meditation and they said, okay, it's better not to eat these, overstimulating foods. So I said, okay, I'm going to give it a try. But it didn't suit me, and it was easy because I lived in Asia. So it was easy to eat those kind of foods because it was a multicultural, environment, Bali, Malaysia, places like that. It was easy. When I came back to the United States, it's like go out to dinner, everything was pasta and rice. And I was like, whoa, and it just really didn't suit me. So again, our intention is we want to keep our blood sugar stable. We want to look at real food. We do not want to have processed food at all because our body does not know how to use it. When we have nuts and seeds, we want to have them, everything in like those are high fat. So we just say just a handful. We don't need to sit there and munch on them. And so again, it is a very low carb diet that I like to use because it's a prevention diet. So when you're in maintenance, then we say protein and carb can be equal. But when you're in a healing protocol, it's got to look like that. Protein here, carbohydrate here. And if you are in wanting to create ketones, that means a ketone protein body that your body can use instead of like sugar, then again, the high fat comes up. But sugar goes down, high fat comes up. If we bring sugar up, we got to bring fat down because sugar and fat, like desserts, can make you expand. So what I always say is foods that get larger when you cook them are expansive foods like rice and pastas and grains and pancakes and waffles. Okay, so if we don't want to expand our problem, don't eat those foods. So Dr. Kinley and I, we've been following pretty much the same, regime in how we eat. And so again, we're always very curious to try new things and to, check them out ourselves before we even give you guys any advice whatsoever. So again, I'm always pro what works. Okay, so also any suggestions for a diet, a low-free T3, keep hearing to eat more carbs since I come from super low carb. So, okay, so I don't want you to mistake eating that I'm suggesting that you eat more carbohydrates. Now, just to understand the difference between a low sugar and a high sugar food. Okay, a low sugar food, when I put it in my mouth, is not sweet at all. If it has any sort of taste, it will be a bitter taste. When I cook this food, it will shrink in size because it excretes water. So if I've got a big bag of spinach or mushroom, if I've got a whole tray of broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, olive oil, tray in the oven, full tray, pull the tray out, 3/4 of a tray. Anything that shrinks when you cook it is going to be low sugar. It's going to shrink your blood sugar and it's going to shrink your waistline, okay? All right, now then we say, okay, and now when I cook a piece of meat, what does it do? It shrinks. So that is considered low sugar food. 3/4 of your plate should be low sugar food. And then the other food that I would put, someone who is going to be in a low carbohydrate is the high sugar foods that I would have them do as condiment, color, texture and taste, but never the main event, and never 2 on one plate. So what foods would those be that have high nutrition? Carrots, beets, peas, butternut squash, and spaghetti squash. Okay, so again, I'm always looking for swap out. So instead of potatoes, cauliflower mashed potatoes. Instead of yam, butternut squash. Okay, so I'm still getting the text, the taster. My brain is really happy, but those are still in the low carbohydrate. 3/4 cups of butternut squash equals 1/3 of a sweet potato. That's the same amount of sugar. So is 3 cups of broccoli. Bitter, lots of food. High sugar, little bit of food. Okay. And so we like to keep our patients who are in immunity issues somewhere around 45 carbohydrates a day. All right. And so for a lot of men, that's 45 carbohydrates a meal that normally that you would eat. So I kind of pretty much, slash it in half if it's a man, and especially for a woman. So if a woman's normal diet, when they don't have any issues at all and their maintenance is 28 grams of carbohydrates a day, I have you do 14 a day. So that's still very low on the carbohydrate scale. So for me, like rice and pastas and breads, I do keto style and I can enjoy it. Some patients say, well, I make, pasta for my kids and on and on. It's like, I can't not eat it. And I say, okay, so let's just do this. Let's take 2 zucchinis. Okay, you make your regular, let's just say gluten-free garbanzo, because the bean's gonna have a little bit more fiber, a little bit more protein. So I cook it, and it usually says 4 servings in 1 box. So I will take 2 zucchinis for me or for whoever else wants it, and I will saute it really quickly so it's still firm, and I'll take just a little strand of the pasta and I'll mix it in with the zucchini, put my beautiful pesto creamy sauce over it, and I've got the texture. It's just condiment, color, and taste, but never the main event. So when I get people to go onto maintenance, then we start putting a little bit of rice in our cauliflower rice, a little bit of red potato in our cauliflower mashed potato. So we can start inching our way, but we gotta be out of the red zone. Your glucose has to be somewhere about 5.2. You have to, all your CA markers have to be down, so you gotta, right now when we're in the healing process, we're amending the soil and, getting it down to the lowest denominator, since we know that cancer thrives off of sugar. And so for thyroid issues, I'd say you have to watch the all the goitering type foods. And so again, I would not, have any raw spinach or kale or any of those Brussels sprouts, things like that, because they can cause issues for the T3. So again, spinach also too. I used to I had Hashimoto's, and I used to load my shake with spinach because it's not so bitter, and I couldn't get out of this Hashimoto state. So I really took all of those foods out and started adding foods that my thyroid like seaweed. And I'm not talking about nori seaweed that's crispy. I'm talking about dulse and kelp and iodine, things that have natural iodine in it. And that really, started supporting my thyroid, and I got out of the Hashimoto state into balance, which is great. So I don't do any raw oxalate type foods and things that are what we call goitering type foods because of that. I could talk for hours and hours, and so I'm going to be hosting some of these cancer conversations, and so I don't get to see any of your faces like normally when I do Zoom. I get to see everybody's face, I can interact, but you guys can see me tonight, so that's terrific.
Someone's asking where to get dulse and kelp.
Okay, so I would get dulse and kelp at any health food store. Trader Joe's and Ralph's will not have it. So you're gonna, and they come in shaker bottles. So again, they're really nice to put onto your salads or in your or a scoop of it inside of your shake. But those are great. And then of course, the wakame seaweed, the kind that you have to reconstitute in water. That's really loaded with iodine. But you have to have more of a Japanese cuisine to use that, right? Or when you go to have miso soup and they got the kind of the fat, seaweed, that's the real kind of seaweed with iodine. This nori seaweed crunchy, I love using that. In fact, I use that as kind of my fake sushi. Because I'm Mexican, I turn everything into a taco, right? So I might have my cauliflower rice, I might have avocado on my plate and maybe some salmon, and then I just take one little nori and I put a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and I just eat it like a taco. And to me, that is what I call my imitation sushi night, but it's delicious. A little wasabi and you're living large. Okay, I think we are pretty much going to go ahead and call it an evening. And now just remember, holiday meals are pretty much one meal, right? So you just kind of say, okay, let me prepare. and let me have a mindset of preparing, and let me have joy, let me connect, and really pay attention to meeting my personal needs, and also my personal needs of sleep, and also making sure that I don't eat too late at night so you have a good night rest. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I hope you got some valuable tips to help you navigate the holidays.